Greetings, all! Today, we'll be examining the uncommon Dragon-type Pokémon Bagon, the Rock Head Pokémon, its rare evolution Shelgon, the Endurance Pokémon, and its final Dragon-flying-type evolution Salamence, the Dragon Pokémon. A symbol of perseverance to the utmost, and more than capable of making their dreams come true, the members of the Bagon family are interesting beasts that can bring both power and vitality to any confrontation they might engage in.
Bagon are bipedal creatures with light blue scales covering most of their form, with a single pair of stubby digiless arms and a pair of legs with 2 toes each, the underbelly and lower jaw having a beige color to them. They possess yellow ring-shaped ear holes with a black membrane at the center, gray eyes, a pair of back teeth that jut up out of the lower jaw outside of the mouth like canines, and their head and neck are covered in a thick gray bundle of muscle to help cushion their heads from critical impacts. Their evolved form, Shelgon, are mostly hidden from sight thanks to their massive, rounded shell with a long crest on the side that covers almost the entirety of their form. The only parts of their body that are visible are their grey eyes with yellow sclera, seen in a black patch of hide that marks where their face is, as well as 4 digiless legs with red inside flesh, the beasts being forced to walk as quadrupeds because of the sheer weight of their shell. Their final evolution, Salamence, have a much more traditional dragon-like body, with bright blue scales covering most of their frame with a grey-ribbed underbelly, 3 white claws on each of their 4 legs, and a long tail with a red underside, as well as red scales on the front of their neck and the top of their head. They have a tripart scaly crust on each side of their head, a pointed snout, sharp canines on both the upper and lower jaw, and a magnificent pair of red blade-shaped wings they use to fly in the air freely. Lastly, it is noted that these beasts have access to a Mega Evolved form, and in this state, their lower bellies morph in shape in order to create large, empty pouches on their body that allow them to tuck their limbs in as they fly and levitate in the air, which partially comes courtesy of the wings merging together into a single massive monowing that curves up and out towards the front of their body like a crescent moon.
In the eyes of the members of the Bagon family early on, the only thing that matters is flight. No matter what it would cost or how much trouble it would be to do so, Bagon are absolutely obsessed with the notion of flight.
The origin of such a strange behavioral obsession is exceptionally abnormal and has little grounds behind it, but it is nonetheless a dominant factor in the lives of these beasts. At the moment, one of the best hypotheses behind this behavior, at least in some regions, is that Bagon noticed that Pokémon like Trapinch, and other species that tend to live in sandy or otherwise rough terrain, is able to evolve into a beast that has the capacity to fly. Bagon, on the other hand, normally cannot, and are believed to have been completely incapable of doing so thousands of years ago. This inability to achieve what a non-dragon type could seems to have infuriated the creatures and have driven them to obtain flight so strongly since then that it has practically become ingrained in their genetics. In summary, while living a solitary life away from other Bagon, these beasts do the exact same thing every day. Dive off the edge of a cliff and hope that they fly, only to fall down and smash their heads into the ground below.
Despite continuous failure, Bagon are determined to achieve their goals and seem incapable of not trying at least once every day, regardless of the social standing or position among a trainer's team. Though they may resort to just smashing their surroundings to pieces out of envy and anger when they see bird Pokemon flying, again pointing to genetics as the cause of this behavior. Even so, this is not necessarily a bad thing, as current theories suggest that the energy absorbed from the repeated impacts may act as a trigger of some sort that eventually facilitates evolution in these creatures.
With this process, much like Pupitar, the resulting evolution Shelgon are effectively little more than containers for a developing body on the inside. In their case, however, the alteration is not one that occurs as a natural biological process, but is rather fueled by pure unadulterated mutation. Shelgon often do not understand why they are as they are, because they are mentally unaware of the changes that are actually occurring within their shells, much in the same way that a person is unaware they have cancer until they are actually told by someone. As such, they tend to be somewhat ill-tempered in the wild, and rarely ever associated with anyone, not only because of how cumbersome the shells are, but because of how little energy they can expend without becoming tired or needing to rest. In truth, this limited energy expenditure is merely their body's way of preserving as much energy as possible to fuel the mutations occurring inside of them which, because of their forceful disposition, often results in them spending a fairly long period of time within this evolutionary state. Once Shelgon come to realize that something inside them is changing, they will halt movement almost completely and stop eating and drinking, waiting in the backs of deep caves until they completely acquire the energy needed for their body growing within to fully develop. This helps the cellular development process accelerate to explosive speeds, and when the time finally comes, the outer shell of Shelgon will peel back completely, in turn revealing the adult Salamence within.
For these beasts, the evolution into Salamence is perhaps the greatest gift they could ever hope to receive for the dedication and determination through even the hardest and most insurmountable of obstacles.
Not surprisingly, most newly evolved Salamence are ecstatic about their new forms and will often go out on a joyride with their new wings, spewing dragon breath and flamethrower attacks everywhere out of sheer excitement and never landing to sleep until they're completely exhausted, with field and forest fires tending to be a common occurrence in Shelgon-populated areas. Their exuberant personalities in this respect, rendering them both a dazzling sight and a potential threat to all around them.
Perhaps not surprisingly, because of the thick muscle tissue that covers large portions of their body, Bagon and Shelgon are normally able to shrug off any recoil damage that might otherwise come with an attack, and thus possess Rock Head as their only base ability. Though extremely aggressive Bagon can also have access to Sheer Force as a hidden ability, and Shelgon with extremely sturdy shells can have Overcoat as a hidden ability. Salamence, on the other hand, are all about pure intimidation with their wild powers and ferocious behavior, having access to Intimidate as their only base ability, while specimens that are able to more easily pump themselves up offensively than normal in the heat of a fight can have Moxie as a hidden ability.
As far as the stats are concerned, in the case of Salamence, these monsters are incredibly effective combatants and can make great use of their powerful bodies to deliver devastating strikes with strong stamina and plenty of speed. Their base HP defense and special attack stats being above average for a fully evolved flying type Pokemon, and the base attack and speed stats being above average for a fully evolved dragon and flying type Pokemon. Possessing the highest base stat total out of all non-legendary dragon type Pokemon, tied with Dragonite, Garchomp, Hydreigon, Goodra, Kommo-o, Dragapult, and Excalibur, and non-legendary flying type Pokemon, tied with Dragonite, overall making them a severe menace to fear in any fight.
As a direct consequence of their exceptionally risky behavior, Bagon have developed exceptionally tough bodies that are little more than bundled muscle mass from head to toe.
Before Bagon hit the ground after a leap, their entire bodies tense up to reduce the amount of damage actually done by quickly relaxing immediately after impact to prevent tearing. The most noteworthy change that has occurred in their anatomy over the past several thousand years, however, is the development of an abnormally massive bulge of muscle tissue fused directly to the tops of their skulls and necks. While still as vulnerable to tearing damage as any other part of their body, this bundled mass of muscle fibers is so thick that Bagon will feel no pain whatsoever even if they land headfirst after diving more than 100 feet, effectively making it as hard as tempered steel. In practice, this gives Bagon an exceptionally potent headbutt attack capable of easily shattering boulders into small pebbles with a single blow, which they often do to relieve their frustrations over failing to fly, and without experiencing much in the way of whiplash thanks to their equally well-developed neck muscles, in turn regularly channeling their frustrations over not being able to fly by indiscriminately headbutting anything that gets near them. Unfortunately, Bagon are relatively limited in terms of offense aside from this attack, and lack much in the way of attack variety observed in other Dragon-type Pokemon, though they do gain access to the Dragon Breath and Crunch attacks prior to evolution.
While the shells may seem soft from afar, Shelgon possess more durable bodies than nearly any other Dragon-type Pokemon known and can often withstand blows that would cripple a lesser creature.
Made of the same tissue as their muscles, and surpassing even tempered steel in strength, most attacks simply bounce off these creatures' shells and leave them no worse for the wear, though it is unlikely they will not become infuriated by such strikes. Although Shelgon are physically stronger than Bagon and should thus have better mobility, their sheer weight of their shell limits them to exactly the same movement speeds they possessed before evolving, which only serves as a further source of frustration for the creatures. Whether it be out of sheer embarrassment or perhaps the same determination that has driven them in life so far, Shelgon often spend their days within small, isolated caverns and eat very little, choosing to endure hunger to make their minds and bodies stronger and more efficient to compensate for their cumbersome form. This can make these beasts very reliable in battle when faced against an unknown opponent, as their capacity to learn potent moves like Protect, which they gain access to immediately after evolving, can help them easily overcome any difficulties their shell may provide. Moreover, if the shell is damaged in any way, it will quickly generate a new layer of material within a few days to heal the damage, much in the same way their bones regenerate.
When it comes to Salamence, wings are not the only major change that occurs within these creatures after evolution.
For one thing, the loss of their shell deprives them of some of their intense physical defense, making them somewhat more vulnerable to physical attacks. On the upside though, everything else increases substantially in value, particularly their movement speed and physical attack strength. In addition, Salamence gained the ability to use several potent moves that would otherwise be inaccessible to their pre-evolved forms, such as Fly, which they learn immediately after evolving, Dragon Tail, Dual Wing Beat, and Roost. Unfortunately, Salamence also require a violent temper that is fairly volatile and nearly impossible to contain. While Salamence generally are benign creatures that care little about hunting most types of Pokemon, preferring to eat fish on a daily basis, Pokemon or not, their adrenal gland becomes overreactive when they start to become angry, in turn throwing them into an uncontrollable outrage that cannot be easily stopped without the use of extreme cold to weaken them, or until they tire themselves out. When infuriated, Salamence will often rush towards the opposition, spewing torrents of Dragon Breath and Flamethrower attacks before either striking from above with a fly attack, or tearing through the opponent closest to them with a slew of devastating Dragon Claw attacks. Salamence usually cannot disengage their infuriated state unless they are trained exceptionally well, so trainers with newly evolved Salamence often do have a hard time keeping their beast from causing more harm than it's worth, especially if already won the battle but is still tearing at the opponent regardless. This has actually made Salamence illegal to use in some tournaments regardless of experience level, but restrictions on the species are gradually becoming more lax as more efficient techniques of controlling their behavior are being developed by breeders.
It is lastly noted that Salamence is only one of 46 species of Pokemon known to be capable of undergoing the process of Mega Evolution.
With the Salamence clutched in their mouth, Mega Evolution takes the evolution of flying these beasts too far and transforms them into monsters that even Bagon would think twice about evolving into. The capacity of flight is the one defining trait that separates Salamence from the previous evolutions, and is the whole point of the evolutionary development, but in becoming Mega Salamence, this will and desire to fly is taken a step too far. During the course of Mega Evolving, the two large wings of Salamence fuse together under the stress of absorbing the energy that comes with Mega Evolution into a single misshapen monowing that dominates their body and radically alters how they interact with their surroundings. While they normally would be unable to fly with such a strangely designed wing, Mega Evolution causes these dragons to begin generating a light electromagnetic field that repulses against the ground below them, effectively allowing them to levitate off the ground while gliding around with a new monowing for stability. As a result, these beasts never have to actually touch the ground, choosing to instead merely fly all the time and tuck their forelegs into a protective organic sheath near the front of their bodies in order to make their bodies as streamlined as possible. In flight, this monowing can act like a large cleaver, slicing through anything that gets in the way of Mega Salamence when they are flying, and zooming across topographical features at an incredible velocity. This can make them extremely dangerous to battle with high in the air, as the blade is rather aerodynamic and does little to slow down these creatures under any circumstances, while simultaneously acting as a large defensive shield capable of repelling most blows without trouble, a defensive trait the regular Salamence otherwise lack completely.
Unfortunately, attempting to battle with one of these monsters is extremely difficult, as the horrific mutation brought upon them by Mega Evolution sends them into a rampaging state and makes them so violent and brutal that they have been known to turn on the trainers that raised them, earning them the diabolical nickname of the Blood-Soaked Crescent.
In terms of stats, the development of this monowing and a slightly new anatomy to fit it slightly increases Mega Salamance's base attack, and special defense stats, moderately increases their base speed stat, and astronomically increases their base defense stat. In turn, they gain the highest base stat total out of all non-legendary flying and dragon-type Pokemon, the latter type with Mega Garchomp. In addition, because they have no need to ever touch the ground again, Mega Salamence are able to add additional flying-type power to any plain normal type attacks they use, and can do so with great effectiveness, essentially granting them the aerial ability, and in turn making them a dire threat to any opponent that is otherwise permanently stuck on terra firma.
Persistence is a wonderful thing to have, and the members of this family more than prove this in spades, I'd say. Bagon might seem kind of cute at first, but their penchant for putting themselves in the way of harm for the sake of a dream can make them a bit tricky to handle. At the very least, though, they rarely ever get hurt from their own antics, but still should be watched over to minimize these issues. Shelgon are usually more than a bit frustrated at their state of being, and given that they look like overinflated soccer balls of a sort, it makes sense. Still, their form can be more than worth the trouble of working with if you really want to make the most of them, and their sturdy bodies can definitely take some serious hits in a fight. Salamence are a wonderful and majestic result of all the patience and endurance these beasts have gone through to reach adulthood, and their powerful offenses more than render them a serious threat to be wary of in many situations. They might be easily down by extreme cold like many other dragon types, but they can still deliver one heck of a beatdown and prove to be terrifying to face. This is only made especially more so by the capacity to Mega Evolve, as the capacity to slice others into pieces more than qualifies them as deadly fighters to get into any sort of tussle with.
Ferocious in the heat of battle, and able to easily take to the sky at a moment's notice once fully evolved, the members of the Bagon family are powerful beasts that can make short work of anything that can eliminate them even more quickly. Their access to both potent physical and special offenses helps to put them a step above many other dragon types, and their capacity to intimidate others readily, in turn, more than makes them a fearsome force to contend with when stuck facing them on the battlefield.
Just do yourself a favor and make sure not to get in their way if they're in a good mood and on a high-flying joyride, as while they potentially might do some damage to their surroundings, it is likely to be far less than what they'll do to you once they get their claws and teeth on you and take you for one last ride into the sky.
Thank you for watching this video. It brings me great joy to be able to speak to you all in the world each and every time we meet like this, to explore the many different facets of both the world of Pokemon as we know it, and the world as we live it, through every adventure we have with Pokemon by our side. If you'd like to, please subscribe, ring the bell and all that jazz, to keep yourself updated on content uploads and other materials of the like. You can also follow me on Twitter if you'd like to know right away when something new is uploaded, and my written works, from which most of this is based on, can be found on DeviantArt. Links to both can be found in the description down below. Remember that the world of Pokemon is a place full of wonder and mystery, and you never know what to expect. So, stay vigilant, keep watch, and always be prepared for the unexpected. Until next time, trainers and friends of all sorts, have a wonderful time.